So I will call to order the meeting of the Committee of the Whole at 6:04 p.m. Has this meeting been publicly noted?
Yep, the meeting has been posted and noticed according to law.
So all trustees that are noted are present.
Trustee Backhurst informed us it should be here at 6:30.
Okay, and Wes
Is out of the
Is out.
country, so he's excused.
okay, and then Allison will be here.
She's in about 15 minutes.
Okay. So we will get started with reviewing responses to questions on committee, staff, and trustee initiatives. Do you want to?
Sure. So, pretty self-explanatory, but I didn't know if anyone had additional questions or comments related to the responses that were provided.
Number one, the attachments that the Public Art Committee, I'm waiting for my public packet to load. They say specifically, towards the end of it, so for example, number 8, Dick Eschner noted that the Public Art Committee / Village of Shorewood is evaluating preparing annual maintenance contract RFPs with various team members in the future to establish a foundation for future maintenance and or potential repairs. There's a couple places where it's mentioned, under 9, conclusions, required actions, contractor team members to evaluate all issues, respond to Village of Shorewood / Public Art Committee in 7 to 10 days with a written summary. So that to me, a valid plan for evaluating and correcting the array of previous and current problems must be developed and implemented before the Public Art Committee / Village of Shorewood will be receptive to paying for required repairs. Why is Village of Shorewood in there? That seems to me that at least in this document from the Public Art Committee, that the camel's nose is under the tent of the village paying for the ghost train, and that I don't think there's any money. They had what, $15,000, $13,000 for repairs, and I'm sure that's gone, so I don't find this responsive.
So, one of the things, and I don't know, Trustee Carpenter and I had been meeting with the Public Art Committee last year.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, we had asked them to come up with a plan for maintenance because of the fact that we at the village aren't familiar or technically capable to do the maintenance that's required on the ghost train. And at that time, they were informed that we did not have funds budgeted to pay for any ongoing maintenance contracts. And that we also did not have any funds or forecasted budgeting funds for the following fiscal year. They had also informed us that they did have some funding with the foundation, of which to cover maintenance, but there was an extensive plan put together for maintenance with 5 different separate vendors who were noted, some of which have been doing work for them pro bono, and then some that potentially there would need to be costs incurred which to contract with in the future. So, in reading the minutes, there's been nothing guaranteed to them. They are a committee of the village, and then we had asked for them to work with Public Art Committee to figure out a funding plan for how, at that time, last year, they would like to proceed with planning for future maintenance, because we're still under some warranties. In between that time, there's been significant issues that they've discovered with the ghost train, which has left it inoperable for a period of time. And so the impetus to move forward with our request, which was to develop that plan to forecast what that future would be, and really so that there could be a plan, that they could develop a plan for funding of those items in the future.
But they also say they're worried about the ghost train interfering in their fundraising for some other project that they have in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So their focus is already, they have been pretty clear that they feel this is they're handing this off to the village, and they are going off to their next.
And I'm sorry to interject, but I feel like that was very clear, and they got that message in our meeting, that this is owned by the Public Art Committee. This is not owned by the village, that we don't have the bandwidth, funding, capacity, anything to maintain or keep the ghost train operable. And that was something that they were going to own, and that they were gonna work with the Shorewood Foundation to find the money to, I mean, unless I'm remembering it correctly, but that they were gonna work with the foundation, and that there was some money in the foundation to help maintain this particular piece of art. And that they recognize that they're handing this to the village, and that there's no way for us to, I mean, it's like, handing a family a toy car that they can't afford to maintain. And so they recognized that in our conversation. So I
know,
didn't.
but these minutes don't, I'm nervous about the way that these minutes are, like the Public Art Committee is concerned that fundraising for future with development of new project now underway, past projects will be adversely affected by ghost train issues. So, I mean, they have already shifted from this, seems like they have already shifted their focus to something new. And,
What would you like to see happen?
With regards to prioritization.
I understand you're saying that you had a meeting where you made clear to them that this was not an obligation or liability that the village was gonna take on, but it seems from the way these minutes are written from a meeting date of June 17th, that that's not what I'm getting from these minutes, because they list Village of Shorewood / Public Art Committee on everything. And I think, this is a train that has been heading this way for a long time. And I mean, I don't think there's funding there.
Correct.
Right, there's no funding request, and my understanding, being the new liaison, is the same, so we're all on the same page, and there's no fiscal request with.
Well, it says there's no funding request this year.
Right, and if there is next year, we'll handle it, but. This would be my absolute bottom priority. I have no interest in, spending tax dollars on this particular project.
Is the request, their priority is to review the maintenance and come up with what it's gonna cost, who would do it, and see if there's any war, I mean, there may be some defective equipment, I mean, they're taking the necessary steps to at least quantify what, they would not know how much they need to fundraise until you do the analysis. They are,
This is the next
fiduciary,
step.
yeah, this would be the next step.
And I don't think it's our place to, I don't think there's any need for us to say they can't take that step. There's no.
I mean, I think that it is also somewhat reflective of us as a village that it is inoperable. Even if we're saying we have no money for it and we can't pay for it, but if you come to our village and we have this piece of art that is not working, it looks from an outsider's perspective like we can't get it together. And so, I mean, I think if that's what the Public Art Committee wants to do, I think their focus should be figuring out ways to fundraise to get the ghost train operable and back up and running again. Because, like it or not, it does reflect on our community that it's not working.
And maybe they won't have to pay for it because it's under warranty. It
Right.
seems like there's a lot, so I'm not sure what you're proposing. If you're against the priority that them taking this on as an initiative, that's fine. I think we could note that, and then we can, hear from the rest of the board and kind of move on.
Well, it seems like they already have a new initiative. They're already underway for another project. That's what it says in their minutes, already underway for the next thing. So that's an initiative that we don't even have in front of us. So,
In the list, isn't it? Signal is one of the initiatives.
Right,
And they
yeah.
came and presented to us.
Yeah, correct.
on the
It's
next
been going on
project,
for a
what is it?
Signal.
They're covering the signal boxes.
They're doing the artwork on the signal boxes.
Oh, right.
The wrapping of the signal boxes.
And here's just a printout of the chart of initiatives.
Well, I've said what I have to say about it. I'm okay.
Thank you.
So what I would say is, what I've always said consistently about the committee, the citizen committees, is as a board, we're here, The citizen committees are run by themselves, I don't think we need to micromanage them. I also, having been part of the conservation committee when we reinstated and the big projects that we were able to accomplish because they were things that we really wanted to do, I think that it's in the board. Initially, they supported us back in 2007 or what it was, not financially, but in saying, okay, go ahead, this is great. And then we raised a lot of money to do this stuff because we had intrinsic motivation. It was something that came from within instead of top down. The Public Art Committee has, all of these resident committees have really brought a lot of value to our village. And the last thing that I want to do as a board member is, again, to micromanage or to pick and choose, because we're not on those committees. We don't really represent the interests of those committees. So I would say if, the Public Art Committee has another initiative and they're underway, fantastic. I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that from all the committees. I don't want to impede progress because some of the board members may or may not think that everything needs to come through us, because I don't think it does.
Well, there is a specific agreement covering the ghost train, and that needs to be acknowledged. I think that, that maintenance is a big deal. When we accepted the gift, it was with the understanding that maintenance was gonna be taken care of, not by the village budget. So I think they do need to get the numbers and figure out what it's all of us need to figure out what's going on with the installation,
Right,
And that
and
was the focus of our
sure.
discussion, was that, they have to take this next step, so it would not be in anyone's best interest to somehow use our authority to say they can't,
Right. And also, part of the agreement when we agreed to the ghost train, and I was on the Public Art Committee, was the understanding, and I communicated to that very clearly, the village is not going to take on any financial burden due to any of these initiatives, and they were also very clear in saying, okay, we'd love to have the backing of the village financially in these, but we understand that, and
I think we also have to acknowledge that the ghost train has never really worked.
I don't agree with that statement at all.
I have looked at the minutes for the Public Art Committee going back to when it was first installed. And if you look at the minutes of the Public Art Committee, every single meeting, there's discussions of things that are not working, that have not worked, that are broken, is it under warranty, isn't it? So it consistently has had issues with operating correctly. So I'm not sure it has ever actually been operating the way it was supposed to, so.
Art's funny like that.
Do we need to stay on this anymore?
I think we can
Yeah, we're done
move
talking
on
about
with
it.
ghost train, but,
Let's go
so
on.
I think, we were just discussing if anybody had any questions about the staff and trustee initiatives, so,
I have a question on number 2 also. So, I didn't understand the answer. We Energies is willing to proceed. The last sentence says there's an informal access point at Culver's Corner Bakery, so they may be willing to work with the village to just make that a formal access point in the place of the Pinedale Court. So we're not, because I think to have the Capitol, Pinedale Court, and River Park, I think that's, especially given that the county just recently said no to another trail access point at the Oaks, so I'm not clear what this means.
So, in under a minute, residents from the southwestern quadrant of the village have reached out to the Ped and Bike Safety Committee asking for another access point. They believe that the Capitol and River Park are too far away, especially when compared to Wilson Drive and the amount of access points there. So we've been in Bart and I have been in contact with We Energies, George with Culver's, and Milwaukee County to talk about formalizing that access point. That access point went in, there was no approval from the county, it was just put in. So that's when I say informal, that's what that means. So we're trying to work with the county to make it a formal access point that they would recognize on their trail map. And also working with We Energies and Culver's to be able to put in a path that would take people from Pinedale Court to that access point.
Great.
There we go.
Oh, so not Pinedale to the Oakleys, but Pinedale to, up to the Culver's parking lot.
And there'd be literally a path that would go right around the Culver's parking lot.
That'd
Mhm.
be good.
Yeah.
Correct.
I have a question about the pump track. I'm not totally familiar with those. And I just was curious how all of that kind of came, maybe just like a little history,
Yeah.
how that all came about.
I didn't know what a pump track was a month ago.
That makes me
And I heard that, I'm like, this is new.
picture
Basically
was
what it
nice.
is, there's a variety of different sizes it can be in, but the thought is almost kind of like a BMX, where you could literally go through the track without even pedaling. So it's just moving your bike, you know, with body movements to pump through the trail. There'd be a series of different bumps and curves that would allow the momentum to carry the bike through the track. We've had a number of the members of the bike community and even some students that have expressed interest in having such a track. So they came to the Ped and Bike Safety Committee first. My general response to them is we probably don't have the green space in any of our village-owned green space to accommodate such a thing, but the county may. So what that priority is really focusing on is working with the county on identifying some green space. There's some grant funding that would be available to help pay for that. I don't think there's any intention of having the village pay for anything at all. So it would be really asking the county if they would be willing to pay for part of it, and then working with our Ped and Bike Safety Committee to do the work to apply for the grant that would pay for the other half. Otherwise, they would have to do some fundraising efforts.